It's nice to speak with you again, John. It's been a while since we last talked. We've done interviews in the past, and today I'm looking forward to hearing your views on this topic. But before we start, can you provide a brief background of yourself?
Sure, and thank you for inviting me to share my point of view. So thank you. I'm John Wilkerson. I'm a supply chain and technology executive. During my career, I've been fortunate to have worked for some very well-known and exciting employers, such as Pepsi Cola, Nestle-Purina, and Dannon, since the early 1990s when my professional career started. My background ranges from first-line leadership to executive supply chain leadership for North America, just leaders in the 2000s. In my last role with Dannon, just to give you a very quick background, I was successful. I successfully managed 50,000 retail store outlets, and during that time, since that time, when I started my consulting practice with a couple other folks, we've been a much broader and taken a different perspective in several sectors, including financial, industrial, high-tech, pharmaceutical, consumer products, logistics, and healthcare. So that's basically about me. Just as a transition, part of that transformation, I transformed myself several years ago to talk about this particular topic and forced myself to become an even broader thinker. So I'm excited about this topic and happy to answer your questions.
Thanks. I forgot to mention the title of the topic of this interview is supply chain revenue growth. So my first question is, what have you been involved in since our last interview?
Well, since our last discussion, one of the things I started to focus on, going beyond that traditional global procurement, demand planning, supply operations, one of the things I started focusing on was actually what can we do, what can our organization do to impact the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet? Investors are concerned about what's going on in the P&L and also overall balance sheet. And one of the things we started focusing on is what can supply chain organization do? So today what we do now is look for opportunities to make the supply chain more efficient with those basic functions. But we also take a much broader perspective in looking for opportunities for the supply chain to generate their own supply chain revenues. And the intent for doing that is obviously to make the organization better, supply chain organization better, but also to improve the balance sheet and look at funding their own internal investment capital. So it's exciting times, and we find that the industry is changing, slow, but it's changing.
And can you tell me more about your supply chain revenue generation concept?
Well, I'm actually very excited about the topic. I think that we're not necessarily in the forefront, but there are others who've talked about this, so I can't claim being the forefront. But what I can do is talk about some personal experience and then relate that to this particular topic. I recall when I led the supply chain organization for a consumer products company that I had to shift monies around and working with our CFO to find a way to source an inventory planning tool, as an example. So one of the things I did is that I developed I hired a solution provider to be able to help us with order management and to streamline our process. And then one of the things that I found from that experience is that it just didn't create value, and it actually became more of a headache than long-term value. So I took that experience and taking that to this particular concept of supply chain revenue generation. Just to give you a quick background is that I mentioned that I personally went through transformation, and what I found is that the view of a supply chain organization, the future supply chain organization, is to help to develop this opportunity. And then once they see the opportunity and see the revenue stream, then I see this as a win-win, including for the customer, the supplier, and the entire supply chain organization.
Thank you. And then can you share supply chain revenue examples or best practices?
Sure, and thanks for asking the question. Let me give you one illustration. The natural gas industry is a very broad, it's a very global industry, obviously. It's striving well here in the U.S., Africa, and a number of places throughout the world. But, think about there are there are hundreds of small suppliers, mid-sized suppliers, and large suppliers. If you're a supply chain organization and you've identified a number of smaller suppliers who you want to go out and develop and help mature them, one of the things you can consider is that the small supplier does not necessarily have the view of the local market. And I'll use Africa as an example, is that they may be producing tons of natural gas, but they're producing that, but they don't have visibility of the local market. If I'm a supply chain officer for a mid or large-sized natural gas provider, I want to help that smaller supplier, help them develop the local market with my own existing technology tools. And then if I can help them, then I can see there being win-win all throughout. The win for the supplier is that they've got visibility of the market. They can see what's there. They can adjust their demand and supply plans accordingly. Or they can identify new markets when they, an example, that maybe they go to a different country, a different region. So they have a business growth opportunity. For the supply chain organization, being self-serve, is that if they can generate revenue for tools that they currently own today, that's only a win for them and gives them opportunity to do some self-funding for other advanced projects. Then if I think about the CFO and the chief marketing officer, CFO is going to be happy, definitely, because there's an additional revenue source that's unforecasted, which helps. And think about the chief marketing officer, that they have an additional story to tell that actually helps separate themselves from the pack. So all around, I see this as a win-win-win for all parties, and it's a good illustration, simple, and I hope it makes sense.
Well, thank you, John, for sharing today on this topic of supply chain revenue growth.
Definitely thank you, and thanks for the opportunity, and I hope my short talk created value for your community.
Thank you.